Yo, what's going on, boys? How you guys doing today? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be going over my favorite Grandmaster Hunter build for this season. After doing every single GM countless times with a bunch of different builds, this I think is the strongest and the one that I had the most fun with pretty much this whole season. And what's great about this one is that you can pretty much take it into every single GM and pretty much have a good time. You can easily deal with every single champion. You have tons of survivability with a bunch of damage resistance plus invisibility, while at the same time also outputting some crazy damage, being able to like basically delete champions in just a couple hits, while at the same time also constantly applying debuffs like jolting and weakening to pretty much everything around you. It is a very close range build, but it's amazing and I really fallen in love with this build. And that's without mentioning all the seasonal artifact mods that you can actually take advantage of. And I've been constantly making changes to this throughout the acts, but this is like the ultimate version of the build, and I wanted to highlight it one last time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed today's build video, and if you do, remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel in case you guys are already, as well as follow me on Twitch. We've been streaming a lot over there, and if you ever need some Nightfall help, feel free to come by and ask. And now let's move on and let's take a look at this build and what makes it so good. Now let's start by taking a look at the exotics that were running on this build, and the first one is the Wisdom Vest. I feel like this one was a very underrated pick at the very beginning of the season. Nobody was really paying attention to it, but I feel like it has gotten a lot more love recently, with more people actually making builds with this chest piece and realizing how good it is after the rework. But I still haven't seen too many people use it with a glaive, which I think is still like the best way to use this thing. So that's the way that we're using it today. And we're not really using this for the main effect, we're actually using it for the second one. Exiting invisibility while near target creates a cloud of weakening smoke around you. So every time we leave invisibility, it's like we just drop a smoke bomb at our feet immediately, weakening everything around us. And when things are weakened, a lot of them just kind of stand there, they don't really attack you. And they also are all going to be taking extra damage from us. And since we're going to be pairing this up with a glaive, basically every time we come out of invisibility, we're just going to immediately weaken everything around us. It is going to be fantastic. And this is going to give us a very easy way to use chain invisibility, as well as continually get overshields, while at the same time doing more damage to everything. This vest just by itself can do a bunch of different things, and it's awesome. And it does have a very low cooldown in between activations. It's like a 4-second cooldown. So you can constantly activate this, and just constantly keep making those clouds of weakening smoke to get the overshields, to go back into invisibility, and also to make everything around you just easier to kill. Now for the weapon, we're gonna have the one and only the Vexcalibur, and this thing got supercharged this season. I was already a big fan of this weapon, but this season just solidified my love for this weapon, and I think this is just like the perfect glaive, especially for this build. It adds a lot of survivability because it gives you tons of overshields, and combined with all the overshields we're already getting from applying weaken, it means that we're always gonna be walking around with an overshield, making us harder to kill. And since we always have an overshield, the Vexcalibur itself is also going to be doing more damage with the melee, since its exotic perk does give you extra damage whenever you have an overshield. And every time that we get a melee kill, we're constantly going to be refreshing that overshield. Even if we just have a tiny part of it, as soon as we get a melee kill, it is instantly back to full. And since this weapon is a glaive, we're always going to be close to enemies, meaning that every time we break invisibility, we make that weakening cloud, weakening everything around us. We also have a lot of things in the artifacts that make our glaives even better, like letting us heal whenever we're surrounded and we get glaive kills, giving us some free glaive ammo, and also giving us some insane melee damage increases whenever we block damage with the glaive shield. The glaives are just fantastic this season, and it makes the Vexcalibur even better. You can pretty much just walk the whole strike, just hitting things with your Vexcalibur without having to bother using some of the other weapons, unless it's to like break champions. Now for the subclass, we are going to be on the Prismatic Hunter. Prismatic continues to be just amazing, and while they tried this build, or a very similar version of this build, on just normal Void Hunter, the Prismatic one just outmatched it. You have so much more survivability, while at the same time also being able to use your Transcendence, which again adds a lot more to the build and makes you even more unkillable. Now for your super, I recommend that you go with Shadow Shot or Silence and Squall. Either of these are going to be pretty good. You basically just want a super that you can just pop and then immediately go back into actually using your glaive. So both of these are going to be fantastic. I tend to prefer Silence and Squall a little more because it can stun like 2 types of champions, but whichever you end up going with, both of those are going to work. Now for your class ability, I recommend that you go with the Marksman dodge. I feel like this one works the best. It has the lowest cooldown, so it lets us spam our Ascension a lot, and that's like a big part of the build. And it also reload our glaive every time we use it, so we don't really have to stop and actually manually reload our glaive pretty much ever. For your melee, the Withering Blade or the Snare Bomb can both be really good, but you're not really going to use either of them too often, since a lot of times we're going to have the glaive out, and when you have your glaive out, you can't really use your class melee. So you're not really going to be using this too often. Maybe when things are a little too far away, you switch to your other weapons and you can actually use their melee. But as long as we're using the glaive, this is not something that you really worry about. Now for the grenade, I'm going to recommend the magnetic grenade. It has a very short cooldown, and it's also going to be applying weaken as well as giving you an overshield whenever it does damage. And if it gets a kill, it'll make an orb as well. And since it's going to be weakening things before blowing up, it's very likely that it actually gets a kill. It's going to be very nice, and it kind of works into some of the mods that we're using. If you feel like you already have enough overshields, you could also try the Arc Bolt and instead get a bit more AoE with Jolting. Now for the aspects, we're going to be running Ascension plus Style Executioner. This is basically like the classic combo for Prismatic Hunter. Style Executioner is a big one though, because without invisibility, the whole build just doesn't work. Without invisibility, we can't actually get that constant weaken that we're going to be doing with our piece of armor, so we need Style Executioner. And with all the abilities we're going to be spamming, we're basically never going to have a problem going invisible, especially because of our second aspect, Ascension. There's a very easy way of jolting a bunch of targets around us, and every time that we kill those jolted targets, we'll go invisible. So it gives us a very easy way of going invisible. We'll give us ad clear or extra damage on some bigger targets, and also amplifying us every time that we use it. And with all the big buffs Amplify got this season, it also is going to add to our survivability, since Amplify now gives us 15% damage resistance. So that on top of the glaive and all the overshields we're getting, we're going to be taking lots of damage. We can pretty much just go in the middle of enemies with this build and always be okay because of the ridiculous amount of damage resistance we actually have. Next, let's move on to the fragments. The very first thing that we're going to have is going to be the Faceted Protection. This is going to give us even more survivability. This is going to give us damage resistance whenever we're surrounded by 3 or more targets, and since we have a glaive, this is something that's always going to be on. Basically, the only time it's not on is when everything's already dead, and then by that time, we don't really need it. After that, we're going to have the Faceted Dominance, and this is what's going to give our grenades the ability to actually apply some of those debuffs. For the Void, you get Weaken, while for the Arc, you get Jolt. After that, we're going to have the Faceted Blessing. Whenever you get some melee final blows, you start health regeneration, and with your Transcendent, it will start health regen for you and your teammates. This is going to be really good because it does count the glaive melee for this, so every time that we get a kill, we're always going to be constantly regenerating our health. So we're always going to be healthy, plus all the overshields, plus all the damage resistance. You can see why this build just has some insane survivability. But if you feel like you already have some really good survivability, you could change this out for something else, whichever you feel like you like. A lot of people run Purpose too, that's also pretty good, or you want to spam in more abilities, you could go Balance. After that, we have the Faceted Hope. Whenever we have an elemental buff, our class ability regenerates more quickly. And this is one of the reasons why we can spam our Ascension as hard as we do, basically guaranteeing that we're always amplified. It gives us more regen whenever we have a buff, and since we amplify ourselves every single time that we use our class ability, we always have the increased regen, and it makes our dodge cooldown essentially like 9 to 10 seconds, so we're basically always going to be amplified. The only time that you're not amplified is because you probably forgot to use it, but you definitely had your dodge. And lastly, we're going to have the Faceted Sacrifice. Whenever we have an Arc, Solar, or Void buff, Ability Find the Blows will grant us bonus Darkness Transcendence energy. And since we're always going to be amplified, this thing essentially is always going to be on, constantly giving us some bonus Darkness Transcendence energy, so we can build up our Transcendence faster, so we can spam it, get a bunch of those Transcendent grenades out there, since on the Hunter they're pretty good, and giving us even more survivability thanks to the Faceted Protection. Now for the weapons that you want to pair up in your Vexcalibur, you want to go with a machine gun on the heavy slot, and a sidearm on the kinetic slot. That way you can deal with every single champion. The machine gun will take care of overloads, the glaive will take care of unstoppables, while the sidearm is going to take care of those barriers. It can be both a rocket sidearm or a regular sidearm. Since we're going to have a bunch of free ammo thanks to some of the mods, you can actually run double special in this build pretty comfortably. Especially we're not really using our sidearm that often. Especially because I feel like with this build, we don't really use the sidearm too often, unless it is to like break barriers. most of the time you are just gonna be out with Vexcalibur. But if you don't feel comfortable with those special, any primary will be fine. Like I said, it's just gonna be for breaking those barriers. Now for the artifact mods, this is one of those rare builds where most of the good mods are actually here around the middle of the artifact. You want to have volatile marksman, because every time that you do some volatile detonations, you get a bit more class ability energy. And when it's not something that comes into play most of the time, just getting a bit of extra ability energy is pretty nice. A big one is gonna be dielectric though. This is gonna give us bolt charge whenever we defeat arc debuff targets, and it's also gonna give us Aur's power as well as health whenever we rapidly defeat again debuff targets. This one I think is the most underrated one, especially for the health. Hold the line is gonna be another way that we're gonna be keeping ourselves alive. Whenever we're surrounded, every final blow heals us. Dreadful Finisher is always so we can be topped off on ammo. Every time that we finish a major or a champion, we're always gonna be able to get some special ammo for us and also for our teammates. The most underrated part of this build is probably right here with Malignant Harvest, because every time that we apply Weaken, it provides us a Void Overshield. We get about half Overshield for each enemy that we weaken, and with all that weaken we're going to be doing all over the place, this is something that we can really abuse. Basically, every time that we come out of invisibility, weaken some targets, we immediately get that Overshield if we don't have it already, and we just make ourselves tankier and give our glaive more damage. There's so many ways that we apply weaken with, so we're constantly proccing this. After that, we're going to have Flashover, and this is probably the one that you could switch out to something else if you don't want, because this one just improves that bolt charge damage. No Bell is going to be the other really big mod that you definitely want to have. Rapid Glaive melee final blows will give us free ammo, and special glaives get additional ammo. And we actually get quite a bit of free ammo just for just going around smacking things with a glaive. This is what lets us essentially run that double special without running into any ammo issues. And that's not even the best part about this glaive, because it also gives you increased damage whenever you block damage with the glaive shield. And this is a huge increase, an 80% damage increase for glaive damage. You basically like half health champions with just that simple 3-hit combo on the glaive. And with 2 combos they're essentially dead or in finishable range, so you can get some special ammo from them. You could say that this mod works really well with the build. And lastly, I would say you keep Defibrillating Blast, so you can use the bolt charge even more, and it also gives you more jolt, so you can do even more ad clear around the champions, and also some healing. And lastly, for the mods we're running on this build, for your helmet you want to go with Special Ammo Finder, Special Ammo Scout, and then a Siphon mod. Since we are running a Stasis sidearm, this works out pretty well, but if you want to go with something else, this is going to be a pretty much open slot. The only thing that you really need is the Special Ammo Finders. For the gauntlets, we're going to have Firepower, so our grenade kills make some orbs, and we're also going to have Bowstring detonations. Since the smoke that we get from our chest piece actually counts as a melee, every time that we do damage with it, we're going to get some class ability energy, so we can spam our class ability even more. For the chest piece, we're just going to have the resistances here. These ones are going to change depending on the GM that you're doing, so just make sure that you check the threat, but concussive dampener is usually pretty good. For the boots, Orbs of Restoration, Absolution, and Recuperation are going to be pretty good, so you can heal with orbs as well as get your abilities back faster. And lastly, for the class item, because we are so reliant on Ascension, we have Double Utility Kickstart. Because we just want to spam it as much as we can, and also a lot of these mods just don't work at all with Ascension. Until a lot of these mods work, especially Reaper, we're probably just going to continue using Utility Kickstart so we can spam even more Ascension. And with that, that's going to be it for the build, boys. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. Hopefully you guys like it. Like always, there's going to be a dim link in the comments below if you guys want to give this build a try. And the gameplay loop for this build is going to be very simple. You just got to make sure that you get that first invisibility. Once you get that first invisibility, you can just get going. You always want to keep spamming your Ascension, so you're always amplified. And you also want to use your glaive shield as much as you can to block damage, not only to keep your overshield up and make you tankier, but also to take advantage of no bell and make your glaive hit even harder. This thing is going to be fantastic. You're basically just going around spamming abilities, while at the same time just coming in and out of invisibility with the glaive, weakening everything, destroying everything because the glaive is doing so much damage. It is just an amazing build. You don't really have to think too much when using this build. You just kind of get in there and have some fun, because that's what this build, everything working together, lets you do. Be in the middle of enemies, constantly hitting things. And if you ran into a bad situation, you could always use the invisibility to reposition yourself, or maybe just put up your glaive shield to get your overshield back while you are invisible so you can get right back in there and start killing the ads again. So hopefully you guys will give this build a try, and I hope you like it and you end up loving it as much as I did. Anyways, thank you all for stopping by, thank you all for watching. If you do end up giving the build a try, make sure you guys come back here and just let me know what you guys thought of the build. Anyways, thank you all for stopping by, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.